So, Wales have got a new manager, but how will Wales actually set up under Craig Bellamy? Because nobody knows. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I expect him to set up and why it's more exciting than you may think. But who is Craig Bellamy, the coach? We all remember him as a player and we all remember how fiery he actually was. But who is he as a coach? It's a different answer. Following the appointment of Vincent Kompany as Anderlecht manager, Bellamy went to Belgium, where he took over the under-21s of Anderlecht before being promoted to assistant manager under Kompany. And when Kompany jumped ship to Burnley, so did Bellamy, becoming their assistant manager in the Championship and then in the Premier League. But seeing as this is Bellamy's first job as a senior first team manager, what should we expect? This clip from the podcast Bellamy did with Gary Neville speaks volumes of what type of person he is in football and how he sees the game. He clearly loves football, and that goes back to when he was a player, but also shows itself again in how he took a voluntary role at Cardiff. But his time at Cardiff as a manager was a failure. So what's changed? And I think a lot of this has to be down to working with Kompany. Bellamy seems a lot more mellow and chilled now compared to how he was as a player. But this clip in particular speaks volumes of his relationship with Kompany, but also his relationship with football. He's clearly a very studious person when it comes to football, and he names Cruyff as a person that influences how he views the game, and that's pretty exciting. Let's not beat around the bush, because last season in the Premier League, Burnley didn't pull up any trees, and that was with a 4-4-2 system that was completely different to the one that got them promoted from the Championship a year before. The 4-4-2 used in the Premier League meant that the wingers would stay wide in the first phase and then move inside as the ball progressed to the final third. It also involved two strikers who had roles that involved them moving into the channels at times and coming centrally at other times. And this was all supported by a double pivot staying central and allowing the ball to flow through them to move it to the wide areas or to the strikers. But importantly, and this is important for how Wales set up, the fullbacks provided width. And not only width in build-up, but width in attack. The goalkeeper is also often tasked with playing the ball short and being safe in possession. But in the Championship, they had a lot more success, not even using a 4-4-2. This was a 4-2-3-1 that was pretty different, if I'm honest. One similarity is the wingers had the free role to move centrally and influence the attack as much as possible. But differently, this system involved a number 10. A number 10 that was reactionary to where the ball was, where the striker was, where the wingers were, and everything that comes with that. This involved the number 10 often picking up tight spaces in the half spaces or just around that to make sure he was always available to receive a progressive pass through central areas. And this is another difference in the Championship season to what they did in the Premier League. In the Premier League, they had two strikers who had pace and agility who would often infiltrate the channels, but not in the Championship. In the Championship, they had big Ashley Barnes playing as the target man, as a lone 9, and he was often a backboard for the technical players to use and bounce off of. And that's good for Wales. And speaking of Wales, this is how it affects us. So, as previously mentioned, Bellamy has been influenced by Kompany. Kompany was influenced by Pep, and Pep before that was influenced by Cruyff. Can you see where I'm getting to here? One thing becomes apparent when we're speaking about all of these managers and the way they play. A back four looks very likely, because there's no way in hell Wales tried to line up with a 3-2-5. I can guarantee that. So expect the back four. No, actually, before I say anything, I don't know why the players aren't red. Okay, I couldn't change it. It annoys me just as much as it annoys you. Anyway, expect the back four to line up like this, but actually nothing like this, because in possession it'll take a completely different shape. Both Rodon and Mepham will split to create passing lanes for Danny Ward, who will always be asked to play it short. Whether he's the man to do that or not is a different question, but he's probably the best goalkeeper we've got until one of the youngsters breaks through, which could take years. I'm not worried, you're worried. Also, expect Ben Davies and Nico Williams to be the first choice fullbacks. I know Nico Williams has played as a left back under Page for the majority of Page's stint, but having a fullback with a strong foot on the strong side is important in Bellamy's system, and we'll talk why in a minute. But don't even expect them to get involved in build-up in the first phase. Instead, expect them to take a slightly higher position and not even get involved when Danny Ward's on the ball. So how are Wales going to build up if the fullbacks are nowhere to be seen? So the truth about this is you actually don't want your fullbacks being involved in the build-up, because if the ball comes out wide, it's really easy for opposition teams to press and win the ball back, and worst case, it's a throw-in. Instead, you want the ball played centrally, because it's way easier to play around the press in a central area than it is out wide. And the way they'll do this is through the use of Jordan James and Ethan Ampadu, creating this box with the centre-backs. By doing this, you've got loads of different triangles, all in your own defensive third, and there's always an option to play the ball. This is a tactic we see with a lot of sides influenced by Cruyff, De Zerbi being an example with Brighton last season. By playing a central in the first phase, you can then look to bring in your fullbacks and bring it out wide in the second phase when the ball's in the middle third. And that is considered an effective way of bypassing the press and then using the width of the pitch. But it also gives you presence in the middle third and makes it very hard for teams to press without you having an easy ball through into the final third. And I can't stress enough how important it is to stretch the pitch, because what you want to avoid is this. This can't happen. This is why Brennan Johnson isn't effective for Wales. I don't think it's his fault. I think it was Rob Page's fault. This is a freeze frame of Brennan Johnson against Slovakia, and it's a problem. And so is this. Why? Well, how's he going to affect the play if he's picking up the ball here with no options, miles away from goal? It always ends up being negative. But in Bellamy's system, or the system I expect him to use, this could be avoided. This system with the fullback staying out wide, not only in the middle third, but also in the final third, gives Brennan Johnson, Dan James, and maybe even Lewis Kumas one day the ability to move centrally and to move into areas where they affect the game the most. And it's in these positions where you want Brennan Johnson. You don't want him really wide and out the way. You want him centrally affecting things, making things happen. And again, that number 10 role I spoke about earlier, it's perfect for David Brooks. Maybe Aaron Ramsey as well if he's fit. Because both of these players have something in common. They're always switched on, they understand space well, and they're very technical. Being technical, playing as this number 10 in this system is important because the spaces are going to be tight and they're going to have to be reactionary to where the ball is. Both of them I expect would flourish in this role, and they would see a lot more of the ball than they were under the previous regime. Meanwhile, you have Kiefer Moore playing as a 9, playing as a backboard, probably where he's best, just facilitating everything. I wouldn't worry too much about his involvement in build-up. I think a lot of the problem with Kiefer Moore has been that we know he's there and the ball just has to go long to him every single time. And we don't need to do that. We're better than that. Instead, Kiefer Moore in the final third at all times will be used as this backboard for the technical players who move central. And that's how I think we'll set up under Bellamy. Obviously, there will be more to this and it'll be way more nuanced, but it's hard to predict at the minute because the footage of Bellamy does not exist as a manager. But given the principles and the way he speaks, this is how you should expect it. Don't expect it to be negative. Expect it to be exciting. Expect it to be different, but also get behind him because this is his first senior manager job.